Hello, everyone. Welcome to EVTN News. I am a day late. I'll attribute that to taking yesterday off for the Christmas holiday, but we do have an octave of Christmas, and actually, I just kind of lost track of the days. So, I'm here, and so are you. And today, we're going to get started. I don't have a lot of stories to cover, but I will cover these, and then we'll see where we're at. And I also see that someone noticed that it is the feast day of St. John the Evangelist. Thank you. I believe my parents named me after St. John the Baptist, but in a sense, I do identify a little bit more with St. John the Evangelist. Um, as you can see by the eagle statue, St. John is represented by an eagle. So that's and that's my profile photo, whatever you want to call it. No, actually, that's the old one. The new one's not quite the eagle, but I still have that eagle. Anyway, let's move on to the pillar. Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia is suing the pillar after it accused him of diverting hundreds of thousands of euros away from missionary or charitable projects to other ends, including renovating his private apartment. Citing multiple independent sources with knowledge of the events, the pillar provided details of Paglia's alleged financial rerouting, which is alleged to have happened while he was president of the Pontifical Council for the Family between June 2012 and September 2016. This was, I believe, over 100,000 euros, which is significant. Paglia is now president of the Pontifical Academy for Death, formerly Pontifical Academy for Life. And so you can see corruption follows corruption. I mean, I can say all the cliches that I want. You know it. Anyway, following this report, Paglia responded indirectly with his personal assistant informing the pillar that the Archbishop had decided to take legal action in response to the article. The assistant stated that Paglia has instructed a lawyer based in the United States to initiate a lawsuit against your newspaper for the serious defamation represented by part of your writing. This was actually reported by LifeSite News. So the pillar, their reporting is usually pretty good. Their opinions, not so much, but got to give them credit. They exposed Monsignor Grinder, so they're not shy with a lot of the corruption stories. Now they're not picking up the corruption story from Diocese of Richmond with Bishop Nestout's priest, um, reported by George Newmeyer. But I think I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility that they feel like they may be in over their heads. The problem is, when you have a top Vatican cardinal threatening to sue you, he's got a lot of money. And that's evidenced by the money he's taken from these charities. If you are sued, obviously, I mean, it appears that this is very much fact, that he took the money. So there's nothing there. This lawsuit is what I would say frivolous, pointless, baseless, I guess you could say. But the problem is, it can still go to court. And if it goes to court, guess what the pillar's going to need? A legal team. And how much is legal team going to cost? They're not going to be able to afford it for free. J.D. Flynn and his buddies there, I don't imagine they're super wealthy. And so this could probably be concerning. And that's what independent journalists face, is these lawsuits. And so this is actually a bigger story than maybe people want to make it. And kind of like church militants suing just random people. I'm going to keep my mouth shut on that. All right, let's move on. But what are your thoughts on that? It's not the church militant thing. Stay off. I mean, I don't want to be, I don't want them to come after me, so I'm not going to comment on that. And I don't have the money to fight a lawsuit. Like, I'm not doing anything illegal, but I don't want to fight a lawsuit. You know what I mean? Neither does the pillar. The Vatican Cardinals coming after them. If they win, that could be a big deal. I hope that it turns out positive for them. That'd be pretty solid. Okay. So the initiative called The Church Listens to You took place on Saturday, December 17th, inviting digital evangelizers and hundreds of young people from 5 different continents who met online through Zoom. This was a digital synod. The meeting, organized by the Vatican's Dicastery for Communication, opened with Monsignor Lucio Adrian Rodriguez, Secretary of Dicastery, explaining, "These meetings are born out of synodal listening, where so many of you have expressed the need to be able to experience the universal church as well, to enrich the life of your communities and your own pastoral lives." Surprisingly, John the Son of Thunder was not invited. I don't know who actually was invited. I don't even know if any of these digital evangelizers have Catholic YouTube channels, because I don't think I heard of anyone who was invited. But it was posted on Vatican News, and if I were invited, I would certainly have something to say. And I think you guys have an idea of what that would be. All right, moving to the Vatican. Father Marco Rupnik, S.J., remains an official advisor to several Vatican departments even after he was excommunicated for a major canonical crime and is accused of spiritually and sexually abusing consecrated women. Rupnik was declared in 2020 excommunicated for the canonical crime of abusing the sacrament of penance to abet his sexual misconduct. In 2020, while subject to a penal process, but before the penalty of excommunication was declared, Rupnik was invited to preach a Lenten retreat to the Roman Curia. Since his conviction, he has traveled widely, received international awards for his work, and continued to release video commentaries on theological matters. According to a timeline released by the Jesuits, Rupnik's religious superiors were aware that an allegation against the priest were aware of that allegation against the priest by at least 2019. But in official Vatican records for 2020, Rupnik was listed as a consultor to the Congregation for Clergy, which moderates programs for seminary formation around the world, handles special cases for the laicization of clerics, and reviews on appeal a range of governance issues in dioceses. Also in 2020, Rupnik held the position of consultor at the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of Sacraments, and at the Pontifical Council for Promoting the New Evangelization. Rupnik was again listed as a consultor to these departments in 2021 and 2022, this current year. So he still remains an advisor to these Vatican departments. Now, when he was so-called excommunicated by the Jesuits, apparently Pope Francis removed that excommunication, and in practice, that's exactly what's happening. So Francis is enabling appears to be a serial rapist. There you go. Spiritual manipulation. Let's talk for a second about that. So a lot of people, they say they put their trust in one person, and blind obedience. When they ask you to do things that seem weird, perverted, disgusting, they just do them because of blind obedience. Can we get past that? I mean, does anyone see the problem with blind obedience? You have to understand why you're doing these things. If they ask you to scrub floors, you can scrub floors. If they ask you to do some of these perverted things that this Jesuit was doing, you can look it up. I'm not going to talk about it here. It's disgusting. My channel would probably get banned, or at least get another strike against it if I talked about all these things he was doing. But if he asks you to do these things, guess what? You say no. Because there's a limitation to obedience, right? If your superior asks you to take out the trash, take out the trash. If your superior if your superior asks you to do something sinful, you take out the trash, just in a different way, right? And that's what you need to do. And that's what the Vatican's not doing. They're bringing in the trash. They're not taking out the trash. And the Vatican is full of trash. But it's not full of Catholicism. In fact, is there a shred of Catholicism in the Vatican? That's really a serious, honest question we have to ask ourselves right now. All right. The Center for Social Action at Jesuit Catholic St. Louis University took a stance against the proposed state rule that would help protect students from pornographic LMNOP propaganda. Young America's Foundation reported, St. Louis University recently encouraged students to oppose a rule proposed by the Missouri Secretary of State's office that, if passed, will increase measures to protect minors from encountering inappropriate materials in public libraries. The state's proposal, titled The Library Certification Requirement for the Protection of Minors, seeks to ensure that age-inappropriate materials are not displayed or distributed to children. The age-inappropriate designation would be made locally by each public library and would likely apply to titles that feature pornography or sexual messaging. The Social Action Center wrote in its Instagram, this discriminatory rule would limit the free and equal access to materials that a library is supposed to provide to all members of the public. Really? Inappropriate, explicit material to children? Is that the stance you're going to defend? That's disgusting. There's no excuse for that. All right, let's jump to McCarrick. So George Neumeier, he's actually in Africa right now. I'm not entirely sure what he's doing. I think he's trying to do a little bit of research there, but I don't really know. But before that, he posted, a Vaticanista should ask Francis to produce laicization documents on McCarrick. I bet he would refuse because the docs may not exist. Whoa. A well-placed source tells me that McCarrick laicization could be a fraud. He cites a source who has seen payments to Teddy after his alleged sacking. So, all right, well, and he has a series of tweets, so I'll read all of those, but let's take a look. He's saying that McCarrick's laicization may be just something the media spread around. He said the documents may not exist on McCarrick's laicization. That's a big one. All right, he said a source close to McCarrick tells me he still talks to his nephews, such as Supich and the Pope. He arranged for his protege Nestout to be chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Abuse Committee so that Nestout could run interference for him during his criminal trial next year. Recall, and I pointed this out, it was Nestout versus one of Nighty Night Tobin's auxiliary bishops. Fully compromised. What happened? Why did they get nominated? Why did either of those people get nominated for the Committee on the Protection of Minors? Why did Nestout get voted in? He was a former secretary of McCarrick. How many bishops knew that? Did they do their research, or did someone tell them to vote for him? The reason for McCarrick's continuing power in the church is blackmail, according to my source. Plus, Teddy can get all the deep-pocketed prelates under his spell of blackmail to ostracize and financially starve any bishop who defies him. He still runs things in the church, is the quote. McCarrick is pulling strings in the church from a pedophile rehab center run by the Paraclete Fathers in Dittmer, Missouri, which is, I believe, near St. Louis, according to my source. Indebted to McCarrick for his election. The Pope still exchanges messages with McCarrick, says the source. There's no question that McCarrick was very excited about the election of Pope Francis. Benedict put very tentative restrictions on McCarrick, maybe a little bit of a slap on the wrist, and then when Pope Francis came along, forget about it. Send McCarrick to China. McCarrick even gives a speech. He gave a speech at Villanova University in which he said a lot of things, and it was a very creepy speech. It really, I believed he was telling the truth in his hour-long speech at Villanova University, and there were a lot of things that he said there that if you listen to it, gives you goosebumps because you see exactly what's happening, and you know who McCarrick is. They didn't know who he was at that time. Let him give the speech and gloat. But now you can see exactly who he is, and it seems as though he had an influence in getting Bergoglio elected. McCarrick and Bergoglio still confer on their plan to turn the Catholic Church in China over to the Chinese Communists, on whose payroll McCarrick has long served. McCarrick has parked a lot of this money in Turks and Caicos, a mission of his old Newark Archdiocese. And I did confirm McCarrick, this was set up. This mission, Turks and Caicos, is a Caribbean island. It was set up while McCarrick was Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Newark. So this would line up in the timeline. So George Neumeier says, dopes in the Catholic press will scoff at the claims of my source, but I consider them worthy of further investigation. The USCCB's bizarre behavior, including electing a McCarrick protege to head up its abuse committee, may very well be explained by McCarrick's continuing influence. Now, I may need to do a further video on this. I'm not sure, but it's very interesting. And then George Neumeier says, go back and look at the Vatican's self-serving McCarrick report. It is full of omissions and head fakes. So I may need to look into this a little bit further, but this is all George Neumeier says, and this is his source. And anonymous sources, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I mean, let's just go with that. No one's a big fan of anonymous sources, but at the end of the day, you need to get your information from somewhere. Is this true? It seems very plausible. Can't confirm it. But I mean, look at what's coming out of Washington. It certainly lines up. Washington, they were all about cover up as much as possible. Worrell stepped down. Pope Francis said, "Oh, you're so humble. I don't even want you to step down." Yeah, of course he didn't, because he had to find a new guy who could cover it up. And Gregory was just that guy, and he went in, and things got very quiet, and then he became a cardinal. He did what he was supposed to do, and he was rewarded. Now, Wilton Gregory has another 5 years. Pope Francis will use every bit of that. Of course, who will make it to 5 years first? Gregory or Francis? Unlikely Francis. Gregory will probably be there under a different pope. But we'll see. We'll see for that. Okay. The next story. After a report by the Lepanto Institute revealing that a recipient of a grant from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development was directly advocating for abortion this year, Bishop Robert Gruss of the Diocese of Saginaw, Michigan, decided to pull his endorsement and funding of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. I haven't had a chance to look into the background of Bishop Gruss, but this is pretty groundbreaking. I've been advocating for years that every bishop should withdraw from funding the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, and finally someone does it. Put your money where your mouth is. Let's do it, and Bishop Gruss did it. He informed all parishes in his diocese in a weekly chancery notes email that he had notified the Catholic Campaign for Human Development of the Diocese of Saginaw's disinterest to continue endorsing or providing funds for the Ezekiel Project. In the email, the bishop also instructed all parishes to sever their relationship with the Ezekiel Project as well. The bishop stated his decision was based on several issues that have become apparent over the past few months. He later indicated the project's support for abortion was one reason for severing ties with the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. According to a press release from the Lepanto Institute, the report provides screenshots of the Ezekiel Project directly promoting the pro-abortion National Organization for Women and calling for participation in two specifically pro-abortion events. So this is fantastic. I think Bishop Strickland may have retweeted this, so I hope that more bishops soon follow. The Catholic Campaign for Human Development is very much compromised. I mean, it's unbelievable how anti-Catholic it is. It's run by the USCCB, and it's pathetic that they can't even get a handle on the anti-Catholic activities that these donations are being directed to. The Catholic Campaign for Human Development should be ended. I mean, any bishop should call for the end of this organization, redirect the funds somewhere else. You can do a lot better. You can donate it to Father Frank Pavone. Oh, wait. Let's donate it to pro-abortion causes instead. Let's donate to pro-LMNOP stuff, because that's what all these Jesuit organizations are donating money to. That's where they're directing the funds. It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. And this is, let's lobby for, these St. Louis causes. Let's lobby for the, for youth to be able to access any books that they want. Specifically ones that talk about gender and are pornographic, and it's ridiculous. It's pathetic. The hierarchy is very questionable as to whether they have the Catholic faith. I'd have to say Catholicism is not being promoted in the Vatican. Does Catholicism even exist in the Vatican? That's questionable. Do the bishops in the USCCB, do they care that Catholicism is being undermined by the money that's being handed out by the USCCB? I think that's a real question. And I think we know the answer to that. Most of them don't. And I wonder if most of them just don't care about what the USCCB does. But if they don't, why are you going to the meetings? Why are you participating in the committees? Why don't you just say, I'm done with the USCCB, sorry. It's because of the Catholic Home Missions Appeal. I think that's a big reason. The smaller dioceses in the United States receive money from the Catholic Home Missions Appeal. It's like a socialism type of tactic in the USCCB. So the smaller dioceses get money from the larger dioceses in this Catholic Home Missions Appeal. It gets distributed a few $100,000 each. That's a few employees for each diocese. So if you're getting, say, $100,000, how many employees can you hire with that money? You can hire a few more employees. You want to fire your parish or your diocesan secretary, or do you want to lay off your diocesan spokesperson or whatever? I guess that's really what it comes down to. And they say, I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep my mouth shut. Well, guess what? That's not going to cut it anymore. It shouldn't. We have higher standards than that. At least I do. Come on. All you who watch this channel have higher standards for it. If you donate to a parish, part of your donation is going to the USCCB. That's pathetic. I mean, unless you go to the SSPX. Or unless you donate to a monastery. Donate to a traditional monastery, though, not one that's going to fail and then turn the buildings over to the diocese. I mean, we've been there, done that. We've seen we've seen Supich take the Shrine of Christ the King. I don't know if he took it or not. I don't know. But they're not having any public masses there, so come on. I mean, a lot of people donate a lot of money there. And look what happened. Saw the title, John. It's good to keep the light on. Mr. McCarrick, there are still too many unanswered questions. Yeah, well, you know what? I just read the stuff on Twitter. You know, I'm not the one going out and doing the research. It's George, and I hope he can hope he continues to do that. But right now, he's not receiving a whole lot of support. I saw Matt Gaspers was giving him some support there. That was good. Matt Gaspers is from what? Catholic Family News. Catholic Family News is pretty decent, pretty decent size organization. So I hope that support continues to encourage George, and I hope that other Catholic media outlets pick up on it. If Taylor Marshall would interview George Newmeyer about this thing would explode. And then Bishop Nestow may be forced to resign over this. I mean, this is that big. I want to see it happen. Let's go. Yes, a fine pair, Jorge and Teddy Bucket and Spade on the beach. Those were the days. Yeah, those days are gone. I mean, I think, at the very least, the seminary rectors know that if they're corrupt individuals, they might get exposed. Because, the McCarrick's story, that was a big deal. It really was. And that initiated a lot of other investigations. Right now, molesting is not a good thing. I mean, it's not popular. And it might be popular with some of the liberals, but yeah. I mean, overall, a lot of people don't like molesters. Even Pope Francis can't cover for them whenever a story like that comes, into the spotlight. Might try to, but it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard when that's your friends. And right now, Pope Francis has a lot of friends who are kind of in that boat. Father Rupnik, I talked about. What about Zanchetta? He can only hide him for so long. What about, who's that guy? Who's the one? Who is the one bishop from the Vatican who had that party with men and drugs in the Vatican? And Pope Francis said, "Who am I to judge?" I don't know who that was. He also had the Bishop of Bling. Bishop of Bling. Have you ever heard of him, from Germany? Spent a whole bunch of money on fancy stuff, and there's outrage in his diocese. So Pope Francis brought him over to the Vatican. Yeah, you can live the high life on our dime, doesn't matter. It's so corrupt. McCarrick's roommate, here's the thing. When there's a new conclave, McCarrick's roommate, Cardinal Farrell, is going to be in charge of it. Former roommate. Cardinal Farrell was, he was McCarrick's roommate for 6 years? Didn't know anything about McCarrick. Oh, I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you don't. You climb the ladder. That was also a coincidence too, right? How you're climbing the ladder. Whoa, what a coincidence. We're both cardinals. Yeah, no one recommended him? Makes no sense. Cardinal Farrell took bribes. Was it from Bransfield? Was Bransfield the one who bribed Cardinal Farrell, gave him $20,000 and he bought an expensive bathtub? These stories are just disgusting. Like, come on. And we're in the middle of it. That's what I say, does the Catholic faith exist in the Vatican? Is there an ounce of Catholic faith in the Vatican? Maybe there once was. That doesn't define us, though. It really doesn't. The corrupt Vatican will fade away at some point. It'll be overtaken by good people. It's a matter of time. Hopefully it'll be soon. I don't want to wait. All right, well, that's all I have for EVTN News. Enjoy your Christmas week. I'll see you back next week. Thank you so much for watching. This has been, oh, okay, this has been, there's a few more comments. McCarrick had secret meetings with the Soviets during the 1970s. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, Rupnik was not laicized, but Frank Pavone, yeah, I mean, it's double standard. All right, this has been EVTN News. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.